This channel is made possible by viewers like you. My viewers, subscribers, and patrons greatly help to keep this channel going. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of you. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any uploads. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you'll get access to what I'm working on, previews of upcoming content, and even early videos, along with other tier options for those that are interested. Thank you, and now on to the video. Timesplitters 2, a legendary first-person shooter to say the least. While I have a heavy bias for this series, there is a nostalgic love there, but even while just taking a large step back and seeing what is presented here, essentially Timesplitters 2 at face value, well, you have a content-rich experience. What do I mean by this? As I look at it, you have a game stuffed with more stuff to actually play, like enjoy in the box. That way when a player opens up the game, or as many of us do it nowadays, download it and hit start, the player is hit with so many options and modes that gives compelling reason after reason to return back to this game. Timesplitters 2 is the type of game where it sets the bar. It's not the type of game that is trying to reach for that bar, but rather it sets it, and others will often try to reach that. Objectively, this game is really hard to beat, based on what it provides on day one. You know when people make wish lists for the type of stuff that they want within their games, like narrative features, options, and all that type of stuff? But here we have a game that actually manages to deliver on all of those things you would have wished for. And just last week, Timesplitters 2 celebrated its 22nd birthday. For many of us, we played this game when we were younger, maybe even as kids. I think that makes Timesplitters 2 very personal to us. The game is part of our history. For me, I like to think of it as the good old days, especially now with me getting older. Even though there is still plenty of stuff to enjoy and play nowadays, there isn't really anything quite like Timesplitters out now. I can still remember playing this title for the very first time. I was very adamant back then that I wanted to go with Nintendo for that console generation. And as a result, I actually ended up missing out on the first Timesplitters title. I think there is a group of us within the fan base that actually started with Timesplitters 2 as our very first title. It was one of those rare sequels that acted as a great entry point, and the player didn't really feel behind or needed to catch up in terms of story. Because well, after trying the first Timesplitters game this year, there really wasn't much of a traditional narrative there. Timesplitters 2 very much was the start of that. This was an objective that the development team focused on as they began development on the game too. They wanted to create a more fulfilling story alongside all the other modes. I think they more than achieved this. Looking back and playing through the campaign again this year, I love the story here. The narrative through line is pretty cool. You need to get back the time crystals, and the Timesplitters have taken them to different points in time. This is a smart way for the developers to integrate a wide array of different time periods into their game. Location variety from the looks, weapons you'll use, and even the music do reflect these individual levels, but they were all tied together by this story. Cortez would go back in time, assume the role of another character while there, play out the mini-story, and then find the time crystal and escape. Setting up the campaign like this allowed for there to be an enjoyable overall story with each level, acting as a mini-story, and taking on different tones and even genres. For example, the very first level is an espionage Cold War setting, with some nice horror touches towards the end. The second has you duking it out with mobsters with classic Tommy guns, another has you battling through the Wild West, and one is even more horror-inspired, like from its visuals, music, and even enemies. So not only do you get the satisfaction of the vignettes from the individual stories, but they all connect too. The talent in the execution shows how the choices and decisions for Timesplitters 2's campaign was done with care, and it all gels well together. Things don't feel haphazardly thrown together, but rather carefully crafted. When I first brought home Timesplitters 2 from GameStop and popped it in, I began the campaign first. I always wanted to know what the story was about and see how it plays out. But this wasn't the only aspect to the game. Sure, you could do the campaign, but there was also the arcade mode, multiplayer, and even map maker. The icing on the cake to all of your actions was how the player was rewarded, with a little something for pretty much whatever they did, completing challenges, beating harder levels. All of this will net you with unlocks for the multiplayer. There was a wealth of characters to unlock, and each one had a bit of a personality, and this is where you saw some of the humor come into play, along with the multiplayer. The campaign is mostly played straight, with some moments of humor as well, but the silliness comes into play even more with the other modes. Related to this, I was always on the hunt for games that I could enjoy in split screen with friends, whether that be co-op or competitive play. For something like Timesplitters 2, this was like the top tier type of thing. Honestly, I still compare games to this now, and they cannot even measure up. Something I like about how this worked was that you work to unlock all this stuff to expand the multiplayer experience, and this stuff I could do in single player, and then be able to play all of the stuff that I just unlocked when my friends came over. Or I could just play it right there because of the wonderful bot support. I grew up on bots, not online multiplayer. It was all about the split screen and the AI. Tweaking, toying around with the modes, options, and playing all the maps was always a delight, and then further add on to it was the multiplayer. Whether if you wanted to take the time, you could, and really tinker and make your own stages to enjoy. This was something that was not a common feature in most console first-person shooters or games. On PC, in many cases, there was mod support, so talented fans could come together and make their own things, variations, and even new games out of what the original game provided. But there wasn't really a way to mod games on console, unless the game had a system to provide to the player that they could use. Even thinking back to this now, Timesplitters 2 was and is just something that's all kinds of special. So how is it to play a game that is 22 years old? Well, I can tell you that it manages to feel fresher than a lot of stuff that you can play nowadays. I think what also helps is that the GoldenEye aiming style is something that has aged well, like a style type of thing. Plus the visuals are still great on the eyes too. It's a testament that having a great art style can more than make up for any sort of realism your game can provide. The level of fluidity of the animation is something to marvel at too. Characters are so expressive in how they move and talk. There is an over-exaggerated thing to it, but again, it just works. Looking at this now, this game is still a looker. It's one of the several reasons why a remaster would work really well for Timesplitters, because seeing these visuals with a sharper resolution would be really great. I'll take more stuff like this over realistic any day of the week. So yeah, happy birthday to Timesplitters 2. I had so many great memories playing this with my friends. It was part of my childhood, and something that I'm even now making new memories with, playing it with new friends who had never played these games before. It's special and easily remains as one of my top favorite games. I do want to thank some of the Timesplitters Twitter accounts for reminding me of the game's birthday last week. And while I am not so timely on a video for it, I felt like it was a good excuse to at least address it, praise it, and then just talk about this game again. It's been a joy talking about these games on my channel, and I thank you all for that. I would love to hear about any personal thoughts or stories you have about Timesplitters 2, or any other entries in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.